Okay. Let's do this stuff. Alright, hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Alright, and to adjust my stream. Sorry for the pop-up notifications coming up over and over again. I had to just adjust my stream here just a little bit. So hopefully that will fix. I wanted to see if this will work out. We'll fix some issues. So yeah, if it's a little janky, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to reduce the CPU use on this guy. So hopefully it's a bit easier on the good old box that I have here. All right, how's everybody doing today? How's everybody today? How is everybody today? Happy Tuesday, Cheska. Happy Tuesday to you. Happy Tuesday to you. I hope you are doing really well. Wade the Wisecracker. First of all, thank you for the follow. I did see that. And I'm doing really good, my friend. I'm doing really good. Hopefully you're doing really great yourself on this fine Wednesday. Everybody is on the road. We're on the road to success. We're sitting, we're chilling, we're having a good time. That's all that matters at the end of the day. Having good times. It's Wednesday. You know what? It's Taco Tuesday. Just it's 48 hours of Taco Tuesday, okay? All right. Then it'll be a 48 hours of Throwback Thursday right after that. Okay. So, Anna, hello. How are you? Are you doing good? It's good to see you again. I hope you're doing really, really well. I hope you're doing great on this fine, fine Wednesday morning. It's been already an up and down sort of day here. So yeah, it's your boy bought 100 shares of GameStop at $3. Damn, son. Welcome to the money. You are a god. If you bought it at $3, man, congratulations. Made 10,000 bucks. How am I gonna say no to that? Or heck, even more than that now that I think about it. I got it backwards. Sorry, I meant $100,000. You're such a troll, bro. Athena, good morning to you. Good morning. I hope you're doing well. Megan, good morning to you. Good morning. And I'm doing great, Anna. I'm doing wonderful. BMZ, first time difficulty having Twitch. First time actually worked. Perfect. Okay, so I'm glad you got that all worked out. Glad you were able to come by. There you go. You're looking for the master of modular arithmetic, president of parallelograms, and the friend of the fraction and the god of geometry. We'll just drop the god of geometry, but we'll maybe the rest of them I'm okay with. I'm like, geometry is kind of a meh thing. How you doing today, Alex? I hope you're doing good, buddy. It's a nice day already. GameStop is out of control. We're all having a grand old time, and there you go. We have ourselves a class. Oh baby, a triple. We're gonna use old memes and make them even better dreams. More people are gonna be coming in fairly soon, so I'm pretty confident about that. At least I hope so. Question mark. Yes. Hope we're all doing really, really good today. if I pull in actual viewers, if I pull in, actual viewers above 20 consistently, no matter what stream I do, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Look, it's just fun. Like, I just have fun. That's all. To my friends about GameStop at $3 for the memes. Well, you know what? They're gonna love their dreams. They bought $3 of GameStop. You're doing it for the memes. Can't really go wrong when it goes 100 times that price. There's a war going on. There's definitely a war going on. Megan, are we going over chapter 2 today? Yes. Yes, we are. We are going to go over the beginning parts here of chapter 2. So that is definitely on the horizon here, Megan. Absolutely. We're just going to go over it slowly, though. Okay, so we're not going to... I don't intend to do it super fast, because we finished up most of chapter 1 last time. So to be fair, we finished up most of chapter 1 last time, so I'm like, okay, cool. We can just hopefully move forward from there. So there's really not a whole lot left for chapter 1, so all honesty. At least I hope not. Question mark. See, it's all chill today. It's all chill. Look at that. We got a few more people coming in the chat. Hopefully you're coming in. Yuckleville coming in for the memes. I'm coming in for the memes. We're all for the memes. Stats memes. Real memes. All them dreams. Let's do this stuff. Alright. Let me pause this guy here. Alright. Alright. Man, if you bought GameStop early on last year, I actually made a tweet about it. It was my first ever tweet I made on Twitter was about GameStop at $3. And I look back and I'm like, that didn't age very well now, did it? But you know what? You can't foresee something a year ahead of advance. So I can't really argue with that. I don't lament over FOMO. I collect what I feel like I've hopefully gotten, and I'm just happy to earn money nonetheless. That's all I care about. So right now, my boy. Now let me see here. Okay, my boy. Everybody's talking about GameStop and AMC this morning. That's what everybody was doing. So my boy is right now Tesla. My boy Tesla making me cash here. Yeah, AMC and GameStop have been both halted at the same time, so it looks like they're going through lots of fluctuations. I'll take that any day of the week. So win a little buddy, lose a little money. It's okay. All right. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. All right. Stuff. Good stuff. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get going here. I think it's time. I think it's time. I think it's time. Let's do this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do this. Did I buy AMC? Yes. Yes, I did. I bought all of 9 shares. I bought 9 shares of AMC. Okay, I did that in pre-market trading today. I didn't want to invest too much, obviously, into AMC because it's just a kind of a throwaway pick, because you never know what's going to happen with that. So I bought just 9 shares. I think I spent like $150 or even less than that, and I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. We'll go with whatever happens. Whatever happens, happens. Good morning, Cool Dad Club. How you doing? Feiner stonks. Yes, indeed. Game stonks. Okay, AMC stonks. Lots of stonks. Elon is not wrong. Never go wrong with Elon and the boys. All right, let's go ahead and do this here. Yes. Okay, let's get started today. Welcome back. Welcome back to Wednesday, end of the week time today. So today we're going to pick up where we left off last time here in chapter 1. All right, so let's go ahead and bring up the big board here for today, and we're going to obviously do some examples. We'll also get into a little bit of chapter 2 naturally, as we did most of chapter 1 here last time. So let's go ahead and get her done, as they like to say. All right. Here we go. AMC comeback after quarantine. I don't know. I don't think so. they're gonna bet a lot of it. They raised like $900 million to try and open up stuff. Hopefully that the pandemic will pass at the end of the year with the vaccine rollouts. But there's no telling if that's going to actually happen because of all the streaming services and the fact that you can just buy it on demand now rather than go to the theater. So it just depends on consumer demand at the end of the day. Is there a need for a movie theater post pandemic? If there is, then yeah, AMC is going to make a comeback. If people feel that they're fine with the streaming services of just getting their fix of the Mandalorian, and then canceling their service and then going back and forth all the time, okay, then people will go with that. So yeah, that just depends on the end of the day about consumer trends and kind of what they think at the end of the day about how to consume movies. Um, all right. Now, I believe we left off at number 4 last time. Is that right, everybody? Did we leave off at number 4 last time on the handout? Did we finish up number 4 there last time? That where we left off? Okay. I just want to be sure and be on the safe side, so it's like yeah. All right. Say yes there. Okay. All right. Stuff. All right. Okie dokie. Let's go ahead and go in here. All right. Alrighty. Okay. So let's take a good look here at number 5, and we'll work our way up here. Again, there's not too many questions here left from the handout, and then we'll go ahead and get going. Yeah. All right. So take a look at number 5. Number 4. We talked about sampling last time. We talked about different types of sampling. All right. And the last one here, one other type of sampling here, the voluntary response sampling. This is sampling. This is a sample that you acquire um, by asking people to volunteer their responses. Okay, so exactly what does that mean here? Essentially, the best way to think about a voluntary response sampling and why it's different here is this: if you had, say, a talk show surveys. So oftentimes, if you hear like at a talk show, they're like, "Did you think that blah 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 cheated with blah blah blah?" And they ask you, "Hey, why don't you email? Why don't you call in? Why don't you text to a particular number?" All of those are voluntary response samplings at the end of the day, and they say, "Oh, I think blah 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 cheated with blah blah blah. This is my opinion, blah 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 blah." So like, okay, those are strictly voluntary response sampling. All right. Again, phone calls pretty common. Okay. So it's like if you're talking about phone calls, you're like, hey, what do you think about what do you think about such and such thing? There you go. I got reminded last time here about my what I got called for an actual survey a long time ago. So I don't know if I told you guys that or not. Did I tell you guys that what I got surveyed for? I'm not sure. Um, no. Okay, so true story. A long time ago, a very, very long time ago, I got surveyed. No. I got seriously, true story. I was called and like, can you take a survey? And I was like, okay, sure. I'll stand on the phone for. It says it's gonna may take an hour or so. I'm like, okay, fine. I don't got anything else better to do. I was sitting home doing nothing. And they're like, okay, can you take a survey about music? I'm like, sure. That sounds fine. I'm like, okay, well, what kind of music? They're like, yeah, we want you to take a survey about Christian gospel music. And I'm like, I've never heard Christian gospel music in my life before that moment in time. And I've never heard Christian gospel music ever. Okay, so my household is not really Christian, but it's like, okay, of course you've heard of the genre, but it's like, okay, you want me to listen to Christian gospel music? So for an hour, I'm listening to all these different types of artists in the Christian gospel music genre, and they would tell me to rate it. Is it 1 to 5? Really great, great. And we would, me and the survey taker, we were joking around, and we were just having a fun time listening to Christian gospel music. And that was the first time I was ever exposed to Christian gospel music. Was actually doing a survey, just over the phone a long time ago. That was it was fun times. Definitely fun times. Absolutely true. It's totally a true story. Um, but yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. It was like it was nice just to listen to a different type of music, and yeah, it was actually really good and bad. You know, that's the thing, Megan. That's a really good question because of the fact that I think that I was really well suited to give answers to those questions that they asked because of the fact that since I didn't know anything about Christian gospel music, right, I don't have any inherent bias toward a particular type of music in the genre. So it's like, okay, I don't have favorite artists, or I don't have favorite artists or artists that I hate. I'm just like, okay, I'm a completely neutral guy and I can give my honest opinion based on what I hear. And that's exactly what I did. So, there were some of them that were like, that was kind of meh. And I'm like, oh, there's some of them that were like, yeah, that's really good. That's pretty uplifting. So I'm like, oh, okay. You have to give him an objective response. So sometimes sometimes if you're asking about sometimes you have to be like, at least you don't have to hear Catholic music. I fall asleep at mass every Sunday. Okay. Have you have you told any of the clergymen in the house? Okay, you could say, but like, can you can you make it less boring? Like, I like listening to the scripture, but hey, you need to make it a little bit more exciting so I can connect with you. Like, okay. Bias, we're about to learn about that. That's correct. That's correct. Absolutely. This is where it's actually very useful. Because again, bias is something you want to avoid when you're picking a sample. So having a guy like me who has no skin in the game is actually, it was probably the best choice for them to have um for them to have in the whole thing. So there you go. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Um all right. Now let's talk about bias here. And in relation to that story, let's talk about bias and let's talk about what it is. Absolutely 100%. So, what is bias if we look at it as from a base definition? All right, this is where the sample is not representative. I should say not the sample here. Get a more formal definition of that. Say the results are the sample. I forget which word I should put. Okay, I should probably put it that way. Let's put it that way. So the results of the sample is not. Sorry about that. I want to get the formal definition so it's a little bit better. Okay. Results of the sample is not representative of the population. That's the best way to put it. So we want to extrapolate results here, but if we don't pick a proper sample, we're going to inherently get bias. So bias here in the statistics is going to fall underneath that category. Unbiased is basically this: the results do represent the population. So again, if we're taking a poll, like let's say a political poll, and we poll like say 500, 1,000 people, okay, if it's pretty close to the representation of how people will vote in that upcoming election or whatever, then yeah, that was a pretty unbiased result. Okay, you're not going to get exact values, obviously, because 500,000 people can't speak for millions, but you're trying to get it as close as possible with the realistic results as well. If I pick everybody, let's say if it was a political poll and I picked out the entire sample from just one party, then unfortunately my results won't hold any merit because everybody's going to vote for that one party. Okay, so it doesn't make any sense to try to do that. So you try and avoid bias as much as possible. Which leads us to our next question: sources of bias. Now, there are lots of sources of bias, but let's talk about the most common ones here. Do we need these exact definitions, or can we phrase them in your own words? I mean, if it helps you phrase them in your own words to help you understand their Wade, absolutely. Um, they may be written more formally in the examples there on the homework, but hey, everybody's got a way of remembering that sort of stuff, so that's cool. No problem. Um, it may be written out exactly as you see here, but again, to understand it is something that I'll leave it to your devices at the end of the day. But I'm sure that it'll match up relatively close to what I put down in a formal way. So, uh, all right. So let's talk about sampling bias. All right. So what exactly is sampling bias? Exactly what is that? What is that talking about here? Okay. So sampling bias here is if the sample again as the last example that I had here, the sample is representative of just one side. Okay. So sampling bias. So too much representation of one particular type of, let's say, person or item. Okay, so there's sampling bias there. Uh, Next one here is non-response bias. Talk about that. Let's talk about non-response bias. So one of the things that you have to be careful about is anytime you're given a survey here, non-response bias could be a problem here. It could be that you do not have enough people who responded to your study. So meaning to say, it's too bad, again, if you try and get 100 people to take your survey, but you only got like 10 people really can't tell you anything. Okay, that's just a random chance at that point. So you're like saying, okay, 10 people can't tell you everything that a population can tell you necessarily. So, it's just like, what do you think about my store? And then you're like, and then only 10 people respond. You're like, well, that doesn't tell me anything. That's just 10 random people. You need to have a much more broader set of people to actually get a good grasp about, say, what your customers think of you. So a good, like I said, 100 customers is a lot better than 10 customers when it comes to making reasonable conclusions. All right. Next is the opposite here, but not an opposite in terms of definition. So there's response bias. Okay. Let's talk about response bias, and I'll show you why this is not the same as non-response bias. Response bias has a slightly different definition. That is that the response made by the individual does not match their true feelings. Okay, this is also has a different name to it. This is also known as scroll down here. This is also known as a social acceptability bias. So let's go ahead and give a great example here. One of my favorite examples here when it comes to chapter 1. All right. So the best example of response bias or social acceptability bias, whichever way you want to call it, is let's say we're doing a survey here. Let's say we're in a position of authority. Let's say we're the police, okay? And I want to take a survey of the neighborhood, or I want to take a survey of the town. All right, and I want to see exactly how that's going to work out. All right, so ban these guys. Bye bye. All right, so it's like, okay, I'm doing a survey for the town. I want to see about certain things here. Yeah, they're bots, then they get banned, and that's just how it works. Goodbye, bots. See, more bots, more bans. All right, bye bye. All right, I'll ban them as fast as they come in. All right. So now let's think of it this way. I'm the police. I'm taking surveys in and around town. Now I come up to you and I ask you. I say, okay. Um, I come up to you and say, okay, hey, excuse me. Do you smoke weed? Let's say, do you smoke weed? And then you're gonna look at me and you're gonna say, um, do I smoke weed? And then you're gonna tell me, maybe I'm a police officer. You smoke weed. You're gonna tell me, no, I don't smoke weed. You know. I don't smoke weed. That's what you're going to say there. I don't smoke weed. So that's going to be essentially social acceptability bias. You're not going to be truthful to me. Um, holy smokes, what is with all these bots? Holy heck. Might have to give me a second here. I'll ban these guys. Not sure what's going on, but lots of bots coming through here. So let me go to follower only chat here. There we go. So if you want to, bots want to learn math so they can self-produce. Truth. All right, so BMZ, thank you for the follow. Yes, if you want to chat, go ahead and give me a follow there. Apologies about that. I'll get the bots out of here. Let me get the bots out of here for now. All right. In any case, let's talk about that here again. You're not going to be honest with the police about if you smoke weed. All right, just say you smoke marijuana. You look at the police officer like, there's no way in heck I'm going to tell you that I smoke weed. All right, you're going to arrest me. You're going to throw me in jail. You're going to fine me, whatever. Okay, there's no way. So police officer surveying if you smoke marijuana. Yeah. So it, it makes absolutely no sense. All right. It makes absolutely no sense at the end of the day. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of the craziest part there. Thank you, Mega Toaster, for the follow. Yeah, I know. I don't want to force you to follow, but again, the bots. Hopefully they all pass. Then I can turn off follower only chat. Um. Um. All right, but yeah, that's going to be social acceptability bias or response bias. It's fairly important to kind of get to know, because that can certainly happen there, um, when you're conducting experiments. Kim Lopez, thank you for the follow. I appreciate you. Um, all right, does anybody have any questions about that? Any questions at all so far? Again, if you don't have any questions, go ahead and type no in the chat. All right. If you do have a question, go ahead and type that out as well. Yep. Good for now. Good. 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 Perfect. Oh, hydrate. Well, Megan, today for hydration station today, we have some Japanese. Today we have some unsweetened bold green tea. Okay, that's what we have right here, right in this nice little uh liter 2 liter canister here. So that's yeah, it's pretty big, but you can't go wrong with some unsweetened bold green tea. That's some good stuff. Um, that's what she said. You had to add one of them in there. There you go, Athena with at least the one in there. Gosh. Oh mercy. If there was gonna be at least one every class, and that was a good, that was some timing right there. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna lie. That was good timing. Oh man, you guys are nuts. You guys are absolutely nuts. All right. Let's move on here. What are some type of experiments? Let's go ahead and do this next one here. What are some types of experiments here? All right, so we did talk about this last time, but to give you a friendly reminder here, some type of experiments that we talked about last time were, say, single blind, single blind and double blind experiments. I'm not going to reiterate these again. This can be done through clinical trials again. Both the researchers and volunteers don't know who got what. That's a double blind. Single blind is that the researchers do know. Professor Chips, how was your day today? My day today has been grand. Has been very good, Yusuf. It's wonderful to see you again here today, buddy. Great to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing good too. All right. Next. Again, some of these questions here I'm just going to go over fairly quickly, and I'm not going to stress on it too much here. So, uh, really, I think the idea is just for us to kind of get into chapter 2 here today, which is going to be the kind of the rest of the time. So, first of all, what is a completely randomized design? So it's basically where the experimental. Let's see, it's where the experimental unit is randomly assigned to a treatment. So this is basically the same thing as the single blind, double blind. It's like, oh, okay, who gets what at the end of the day? Who gets a vaccine? Who gets a placebo at the end of the day? There you go. What's my thoughts on the next, latest hashtag video? That trade alert is lit. I'm waiting for tomorrow. So when they release the part 1 of the documentary, that's going to be very fun to watch. Um, okay. Okay, what is a matched pairs design? Okay, now matched pairs is something we may talk about later in the semester. We're just going to talk about the definition here. But basically this is basically where the experimental units, or again the people who are getting treatment here, units are paired up. So what's a great example of a matched pairs design? Let's say you're doing a clinical trial and you're testing out a drug. Let's say you're testing out a drug for diabetes. Okay, pretty debilitating condition. Okay, but you want to get a good compare and contrast. So you want to say two similar patients with diabetes. So you could say one of the patients with diabetes who have the same similar type of condition will get the drug. The other one does not get the drug. And since they have very similar health conditions, maybe they have similar health conditions, maybe they have a similar body constitutions, whatever the case may be, you can properly compare and contrast those two to see what the effects of the drug are on the one who did get it compared to the one who didn't get it. Okay, so and you match those up here to properly test your results. That's why it takes a long time. Sometimes body types mean a lot, weight means a lot. Um, what other kind of conditions do you have outside of diabetes? You could also talk about that here to be a factor about why you wouldn't pair two other people together, but you pair another two other people together. So there's a lot of different factors to determine match pairs, but that's essentially what it means at the end of the day. All right. Okay, bring this up here. Alrighty. Alrighty. There we go. Bring up the next one here. All right. All right. Any questions about chapter 1? That's the end of chapter 1 there. That's just again all definitions as pointed out here. So all definitions, but any questions about that? No questions. All right. That bada bing, bada boom, baby. Um. Okay. Not at the momento. No, it's. All right. No. Perfect. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on here. And what we're going to talk about for the remaining bit of the time here is we're going to go ahead and talk about the first couple sections here in chapter 2. All right, so we're going to get into the actual, hey, let's work with numbers sort of thing, because everything we've done in chapter 1 is just me talking about words. and you're like, it's words, but words are words. Like, I need something more than words, and I'm like, okay, that's fair. You do need something more than words. I can't really argue with. So let's take a good look here at question one, and we're gonna use basically what I'm gonna do here for a lot of these particular questions here. So let me go ahead and preface it by saying this here. A lot of these questions will be using just one single example, okay, and that way it's easy for you to follow because it's just kind of like one kind of leads into another. So you'll see exactly how this works out. It's really not too hard, but we'll see what we're working with. All right. First and foremost here, we do need a definition here right off the bat, and then it'll make a lot more sense about what we're doing later. All right, so what is frequency and frequency distribution? Okay, so what we want to do here in chapter 2 is we want to first talk about how to organize data, and specifically data sets. Okay, so we're going to take some data sets and we're going to figure out ways about how to organize it. Now, one of the most common ways to organize data sets of any variety is is talking about frequency and frequency distribution. So basically, a frequency is basically how how many data items fall within a class. Now, I'm going to talk about what a class is, but to put it as a simple definition here, at least for now, we'll talk about class here in just a few questions here, I believe that's, yeah. So, but a class here is like a category. Okay, so, but we'll need to expand upon what, how we define classes and whatnot. But for now, it's like how many of those data items fall within a category or class, right? So you'll hear me say that. And then the frequency distribution is basically how those are measured out per class. Okay, so the frequency distribution is amount of data items for the whole data set in each class or category, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our example that we're going to be using here and to answer this question and a few other questions. All right. And we'll see exactly how it works. It's really not too hard. And question 2 and 3 will go together as well. All right. So let's bring up an example here. And what do I want to do here? Oh, I know. I always had something in mind, but all right, so let's bring up a little canvas here. This is going to be our example that we'll show off. So let's say, for example, we're going to have a data set. All right, and I'm going to put in some numbers here as part of the data set. All right, let's say in this case here, they happen to be test scores of some variety. All right, so we have a bunch of people that took a test. We record their scores of what they got on the test. Let's see what they got. So let's see. Let's go with 5, 93, 51, 77. Go with 79, 62, 91. That 99, 80. Go with 5, 6, 7, 2, 77 again. At 61 and 80. Okay. So here I've just wrote down some random scores of a test. There they are. Okay, so this is going to be what I refer to as our data set. Okay, this is our data set. We're going to go ahead and use this here to get a lot of different types of answers. All right, associated with, again, we want to organize this data set as best as possible to use it for our studies. All right, for whatever we're going to be doing. Okay, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. All right, so let's talk about a frequency and frequency distribution. So, if we're talking about scores here, let's have scores and let's talk about frequency. Put that right next door. Okay, so let's think about how we normally do this. Just think of using common sense here. In common sense, we usually do scores here in, A, B, C, D, F kind of format here. So we say, okay, how many scores got A's? How many scores got B's, C's, D's, and F's? Okay, I want to do something fairly similar here as well. In this case, I can think of it as like scores in the, say, the 50s, scores in the 60s, scores in the 70s, the 80s, or the 90s. Okay, maybe I can think of it that way, and I can organize my data in that kind of appropriate way. So maybe I would put down here, I say maybe I put down a range of scores to reflect each one of those. So for example here, maybe I put these scores here, maybe I put the scores here between 50 and 59. All right, and I go 60 to 69. Maybe I go 70 to 79. So all the scores in the 70s. Maybe I go 80 to 89. And then finally 90 to 99. So I go just like that. Okay, so now, what's the frequency here? Okay, so the frequency here is going to tell us how many scores fall within each category. Or, let's take a look at the first one here. How many scores do you see in the data set? How many data items in the data set are between 50 and 59? So, or again, how many scores are between 50 and 59 that we see here? I'll ask that question here. How many scores between 50 and 59? Okay. All right. 2. That's correct. All right. So we have 2 here. Absolutely right. All right. So um that's right. So we have 51 and 57. Those are the only 2 scores in the 50s. So that's going to be our frequency is 2 because we have two data items between 50 and 59. Okay, how about the 60s? Say between 60 and 69. How many scores are between 60 and 69 according to what we see here? Okay, so we see 3. All right, that sounds perfect to me. It was 62, 66, and 61. All right, so 3, absolutely spot on. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. All right, let's look at the 70s. How many scores are in the 70s? The 3 and 4. Take a good look here. We have 77, 79, 72, and 77. Okay, so we actually have 4 here. So let's be a little careful about that. We got 4 scores there. There we are. How many scores do we have in the 80s? How many scores we got in the 80s? 4. I think that's correct. Yes. Yes, indeed. We got 4 score in 7 years. Okay. Okay, 4. Better. Okay, so we have 4 scores between 80 and 89. Absolutely 100% agree with you guys. Very good so far. And how many scores are between 90 and 99? So how many scores in the 90s? Okay, 3. That's correct. Okay, very good. All right, excellent job, everybody. So here we've successfully made a frequency distribution. We made some categories here, again, the scores categories from 50s to the 90s, and we identified how many data items are within each one. So that's going to be our frequency distribution done and dusted. All right. We can obviously do more to, of course, take a look at this distribution in a little bit more detail. So let's go ahead and start expanding upon that. All right. Yeah, there's a bit more to do here. And of course, that will answer some of our other questions that we have on the handout. So again, this example is designed this way on purpose. So, okay. Let's go to question 2, and then I'm going to come back here. All right. Question 2 says, how do we calculate relative frequency? Okay, now let me go back here one more time before I write that out. I want you to take a look at these frequencies here. If we add up all these frequencies here together, in this case here, if we add them up together, we get 16. Now, why is that important here in this particular instance? It's because that's how many data items that we actually have in our data set. So our frequency should add up to the number of data items in the data set. So I'm going to add that as a slight note here because that'll be important here for the for this next part. So note here, the sum of the frequencies must equal the number of data items in the data set. Okay, we got to take that to the bank every single time. Okay, number of data items in the data set. Hey, it has to be equal to that sum of the frequencies. Now, why is this important? Because if we're going to figure out the next question here, how do we calculate relative frequency? Well, we do need to include the sum of the frequencies, or again, the number of data items in the data set. So essentially, and I wonder if I should. All right. Relative frequency is going to equal the frequency of the class. So the frequency of that category divided by the sum of the frequencies. So as we talked about here, the sum of the frequencies is how many data items are actually in the data set. All right, but that's basically what we're coming down to here at the end of the day. All right, so frequency of the class divided by the sum of the frequencies is what relative frequency is going to be, and this is going to be equivalent to some typically as decimal or percentage that we have here at the end of the day. So what is this going to look like here? Please talk about that. What this looks like here specifically, let's go ahead and make another column here. So basically, if I look at the 50 to 59 here, and I want to talk about the relative frequency, I'm going to take this 2 here, and I'm just going to divide it by 16. So I just do 2 divided by 16 here. And again, fully should use this calculator out. All right. So do 2 divided by 16 here. All right, and here we get 0.125. But 0.125, of course, is also representative of a percentage. So this would be 12.5%. So you could say 12.5% of the scores in this for this test are between 50 and 59. Yeah, we're just again, we're just organizing the data as simple as possible. Maybe we draw some conclusions out of it. Fine. All right, why don't you guys help me out with the next one here? Take 3 divided by 16 here. What do we get there in that case? We get 3 over 16. What's that? Okay, good. That's right. That's correct. 0.1875, right? Or 18.75%. Yep. Again, make sure you write it as a decimal first, okay? And then you can write it as a percentage afterwards, okay? So again, I'm writing it as a decimal first because sometimes you may end up with very confusing things. So we don't want to. Then you can write the percentage afterwards because it could be an ugly decimal. That's why. Okay, how about 4 out of 16? So decimal and then percentage. So, okay, 25. So what's that as a decimal? 0.25. Okay, good. Want to be sure you guys write out the decimals as well. Okay? Some questions may just require decimals. Some questions may require the percentage. That's why I'm asking you to do both. Okay? So I'm just covering our bases here because some questions on the homework may require you to do both. So I just don't want you to be surprised. Okay? All right. Next one here is the same. So that's not going to change. Okay. And last one here, 3 out of 16. What do we get there? Get 3 out of 16. Okay, 0.1875. Okay. Oh, that was up there. What am I doing? All right. All right. Good stuff. Okay. So now we got a relative frequency here, 0.1875, 18.75%. And so to make sure that you confirm this to be correct, and all of you are correct about your calculations, so that's really, really good, is if you add up all these decimals here, you should get 1 or approximately 1, okay? Or 100%. The reason why I say approximately 1 is because sometimes the decimals can be really ugly and you may need to round a bit. So um, let me put that as a note here. Note here. So note, you may be approximately uh, maybe approximately added up to 1 if you have to round the decimal. Okay, so again, that can happen if they're really, really ugly. That can certainly happen. Okay, that's fair. All right. Any questions so far about that? All right. Okay, so you could take this to the bank here. Let me go ahead and show off here. Question 3 here on the handout is how do we make a relative frequency distribution? Well, we just did that right now. This is actually question number 3 right here. So question 3 is right here. How do you make a relative frequency distribution? Well, there you go. You see a very basic, nice template for a relative frequency distribution. Easy peasy lemon the squeezy. All right. Okay. Everybody's good. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. All righty. Let's take a good look here at the next question. Okay. Number 4, what type of graphs can we make using frequency and relative frequency? All right, so there's a lot of different graphs that you can certainly take and use and put together. Let's talk about some of those graphs here. Let's talk about, let's say, bar charts. Okay, so you can make a bar chart. You can make line graphs. You can make a what's called a Pareto chart. Pareto chart is just an ordered bar chart. Just a fancy word for ordered bar chart. Pie chart, pie graph, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. All right. So lots of different types of graphs that you can certainly use with frequency and relative frequency to kind of organize your data as best as possible. Um, but we will see. Actually, in this section, actually in this chapter, we definitely will use a couple of these. All right, for sure. I don't think we'll be using Pareto charts per se, but the bar chart, line graph, yeah, that could certainly be useful. So just depends on how we do it. That's all. Yeah. Oh, uh, that's all we're relatively doing. Simple. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Good beans. All right. So need to talk about a couple of more things, and then it will make a whole lot more sense here. Okay. Now, The next thing that we have to do here is talk about, well, if we're going to organize our data, we need to do it in a proper manner. Okay, we can't just go all willy-nilly and say, yeah, this just magically works. Wave our hands and magic, it happens. I wish it worked that way for everything, but as we all know, it doesn't. Okay, maybe only in movies, but sadly, it's math and it doesn't work that way. Sadness. All right. In any case, let's talk about lower class limits, upper class limits, and class width. All right. So as we talked about here, we have a category. All right, we have categories. In our case, we had our score ranges, right? We had the 50s is 50 to 59, 60 to 69, 70 to 79, and so on and so forth. All right. And so in that case, from our example here, put that side to side here. Okay, so taking a look at our categories, our scores here, let's talk about our lower class limit. A lower class limit is the lowest value in that class or in that category. Okay. The upper class limit is the highest value in that class. And then finally, let's talk about the class width. And this will be the next question here will make more sense why I'm defining it now. But what is the class width? All right, so the class width actually is a formula. And the class width specifically talks about how many values that you have between, how many values do you have within one category. So in this case here, viewer, thank you for the follow, appreciate that. So basically what this means is that we're going to take the lower class limit of class number 2 and we'll subtract it by the lower class limit of class 1. You're probably saying, well, what's this class 2, class 1 kind of stuff? What are you talking about? It doesn't seem to make any sense. Well, let's take a look at our example that we have here off to the right. Lower class limit 2 would be like the next class above. So in this case here, if I were to look at this would be my lower class limit here, would be 60 for class number 2. So I'll put C2 for class 2. And this would be my class 1 here, which would be 50. I can name anything class 1 and class 2 as long as they're consecutive to each other. They can't skip, so that's one thing you have to be careful about. So in this case here, if we took a look at the class width, the class width here is equal to 60 minus 50. And so here we get 10. So I could have done this with 70 and 60, 80 and 70, or 90 and 80. Doesn't really matter. But those are the two that I chose as long as they're consecutive. And so the class width here is 10. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So I have 10 possible scores between 50 and 59. Okay, so that's the class width at the end of the day. You notice that it wasn't 9, it's actually 10, by the way. Got to be a little bit careful about that. That's the reason why it's the formula is set in that way. 59 minus 50 is indeed 9. However, you have to include 50 as a possible score within that category. So it's actually 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59. You have 10 possible scores in that category. So instead of 9. That's why it's a little counterintuitive when you think about it at first, but once you get it, you're like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. All right. Questions so far? Questiones. Stop here for just a second here. Any questions so far? Nah. Who dares like, nah, I got nothing. Like, you make this too easy. I'm like, I hope it is. Can I show number 2 for 1 second again? Yeah, sure. I can do that. Show that off. There you are. Yeah, feel free to stop me at any time and say, "Hey, I got a question for you." Like, that's cool, man. Ask away. Ask whatever you like. You can ask whatever you want. Let me know when you're done, so that way I can move forward. Okay. Beans. All right. So we're gonna move forward now. Okay. Next, let's take a good look here at number 6. At the end of class, can you go back to the last 2 questions, section 1? Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I can. I can definitely do that. I can definitely do that. Absolutely. If you missed it, that's fine. I can show it here to you here at the end of class, and then uh, you can copy that down, or again, you could watch the replay once it's posted. Either way, but yeah, I'll show that to you in the class since you asked, so not a problem. Okay, now let's move a little bit forward here, though. Well, got other things I gotta do, I promise. All right, so how do we construct a frequency distribution with the proper number of classes? Now, this is something that is actually very important. All right. And that is, you need to be able to construct a frequency distribution without too much clutter. Again, we are trying to organize our data, but you can't be lazy about it either. All right, stats is kind of one of those things here. So let's talk about some tips here. First of all, typical max number of classes. Max number of classes should be, 15. Okay. You wanna kind of consolidate things down as best as possible so it's easier to read. So max number of classes can be 15. All right. Put a note here. Do not make a class for each individual data item. So if you try and make an individual data item here for every single data item in the data set, all right, if it is too large. So if you have 16 data items like we had here in our example, well, then the problem is that that's way too many to make an individual one here for every single one, for every single guy. And you'd have to also be, you got randomly kicked off? You're back now? Okay. Sorry about that. I promise you I didn't touch nothing, okay? You're always welcome back here, BMZ. All right. So don't make a class here for every individual data item if it's too large. Again, if you have a limited amount of data items, then it's like if you have like 4, 5, and 6, then yeah, you can just put your classes as 4, 5, and 6. That's fine. But not for every single data item, not for every single score. It's going to be pretty terrible. And the reason why it's going to be pretty terrible is because of this. All right. You must, and this is actually a requirement here, you must be consistent with the class width for every class. So this is actually really, really important. So you cannot skip. There's no skipping allowed, okay? So no skipping. So I just can't randomly say, oh, I can go 50 to 59 and then 60 to 64. I can't do that. I'm not allowed to do that. I have to have the same consistent class width every single time. All right. Meaning if I have a class width of 10 in one category, I have to have a class width of 10 in the next category. I have to have a net class width of 10 in the next category after that. And I keep going less like that until I've represented all my data items. All right. So I'm not allowed to skip. So that's why I put the second thing there is like, don't make a class for every individual data item. Guess what you have to do? You're going to literally have to write every number in between that doesn't have a test score associated with it. And then suddenly you'll have a list of, instead of what you thought was 16 items is now you have a list of 50 items and a lot of zeros. And basically, you've just made it completely pointless to actually organize the chart. So don't want that to happen. That'll be very, very bad to do. Okay. Now, let's take a good look here at I'm going to take a look here at a couple of other questions here, and then we'll probably end off here at number, which one do I want to end off here? Yeah, I'm going to end off here at number 8 here today. So we're going to do 7 and 8 here because we can use the same example here, and then we'll pick up from here for the rest of chapter 2. So most of chapter 2 here isn't too bad. It's just getting this is the meat and potatoes here, to be honest. All right. In any case, let's talk about the next one here. What is a histogram and some properties? All right. Let's talk about what a histogram is. Okay. So a histogram is essentially a connected bar chart that represents the frequency distribution. This can also represent the relative frequency distribution, but typically it's the frequency distribution. Now, I'm just going to point out here the first word here, connected bar chart. Okay, it is a connected bar chart. It's not a bar chart that it's not a bar chart that's just separate. No, it's a connected bar chart. So we're going to take a look at how we can put that together here. This connected bar chart. Some properties here. One property that is going to be important here is that this shows the type of distribution for the data set from a macro perspective. So it's like, okay, I want to pick a big picture perspective here. I'd be like, okay, hey, let me see what the big picture perspective says. All right, I can actually see that here using a histogram. All right, so let's take a look at how we can go ahead and construct that here together. Okay, next, put out the canvas here. Zoom out a little bit more here because we're gonna now expand on this example here just a bit more. Got more to do. Okay. So now what we're going to do here in this instance is now we're going to make an X and Y kind of chart kind of guy here. So let's go ahead and make a little XY chart here. In this case, I'm going to have this. I'm going to make it look like this. All right. So on the bottom here, I'm going to have the scores. Again, each category that I have down here, each class. And over on the left here, I'm going to have frequency. Okay. I have frequency there on the left and scores here on the right. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in every category that we made here from our previous example. So we have, again, 50 to 59. We'll have 60 to 69. 70 to 79. And then our last two categories here, 80 to 89. And finally, 90 to 99. All right, we'll also have frequencies here of 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, cool beans. Okay, so let's take a good look here at how we can construct this connected bar chart, and we'll see what we're working with. Okay, so first let's look at 50 to 59. Okay, let's talk about how this will work here. So what we want to do here is we want to connect the bar here. Now, one thing that you have to be careful about is you don't want to start all the way on the left. Can I make this sketch available somewhere? It'll be here on the stream. Actually, I should make that a bit bigger because it's my face isn't the way. So let me switch cameras here for just a second. There we go. I'm gonna take my face out of it. All right. You can always watch the replay here, Dmar, if you want to. So but I can copy and paste it somewhere if you like. So I don't have a problem doing that. Okay. So here we have the scores between 50 and 59. So with 50 and 59 here, we have two scores between 50 and 59. So I'm going to start a little bit to the left of this hash mark here for 50 to 59. I'm going to go up to 2. Stream should be better. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to go a little bit to the right of the hash mark here, just like so. Bring that down. And there we go. I've made my first bar here for the frequency between 50 and 59. Okay. Now remember, as the definition says, it is a connected bar chart. So I'm not going to draw a separate bar here, but I'm going to use this bar that I've just now made, and now I'm going to connect it with this. So essentially, take a look at the next category, 60 to 69. We have a frequency of 3. Let's start here from the upper right-hand corner, go up to 3, go a little bit to the right of 60 to 69, and boom, there we go. We got it. That's the next one. Repeat the process here for 70 to 79. It's going to go up to 4. Goes up to 4. Go a little bit to the right of that hash mark for 70 to 79. There you go. 80 to 89, that's going to be 4 as well. So we'll just start at 4 here. Go a little bit to the right, 80 to 89. And wha-bam. Got ourselves another bar. It's time for 80 to 89. And then finally, we have the last category, which is 90 to 99, which is 3. So we're going to start right where 3 is approximately. And we'll cut over here to the right. And then there we go. You got it. So this, as you can see here, this is going to be our connected bar chart here. So we'll go ahead and fill in with some black paint. There we go. There's our frequency distribution right there, just like so. And frequency distribution with the histogram. All right. Any questions about that so far? Okay. Now there are a couple more things here that we can get from this. Actually, one more thing we can get here from the histogram. Okay, all of you are doing really, really good here today. I'm glad you guys are. Thanks for being super patient with me. Okay. So one of the things that we're going to take away from this is that you can also get one more piece of information or one more type of graph. So you can easily acquire a frequency polygon from the histogram. A frequency polygon, just to let you know, is just super fancy terms for just a super fancy term for a line chart, a line graph, okay, of the frequency distribution. So fancy term, but really not very difficult. So you're probably saying, well, how is it easy from this guy here? Well, all you got to do is, if you notice how I actually constructed this, and let me actually shrink this down to half. All right, so if you notice how I constructed this distribution here, this histogram, pardon me. Notice I put the tick marks here right in the middle of each one of these categories. In this case here, that is strictly by design. And so I'm going to mark this in green. You'll see exactly where I'm marking this. This is the center of every bar that we have here. And so all I'm going to do here is just mark those in green. And I'm just going to play connect the dots. I don't have to make a curve out of it. I'm just going to play sharp connect the dots here. So boom, 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 and boom. All right. And this little green line here is the frequency polygon for this particular frequency distribution. So you can see how fast we got that directly from the histogram that we had just constructed. All right, good stuff. Okay, finally, let's go over the last question here for today, which is the stem and leaf plot. Okay, so what are stem and leaf plots and what are some things to remember? Okay, so stem and leaf plots here aren't too hard. Just again, just a different way of organizing the data items here. So with stem and leaf plots, one thing to remember about stem and leaf plots, though, is that they represent, this represents every data item in the data set. So in a sense, a frequency distribution is this kind of like the big picture here, and just saying, well, how many scores are within each category. Whereas a stem and leaf plot here, this actually represents every single data item regardless. Okay. Now what we're going to have here for a stem and leaf plot, let's go back to our little guy here. Now we want to use the data set here that we had at the very beginning. And now it's going to make more sense about what a stem and leaf plot is going to do. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a stem. And then on the right side here, we're going to have the leaves. In this case here, let's talk about what the stems are. Okay, so here. So the stem here could represent here, in this case, if we want to do this here, the stem here could represent the tens digit in our case, okay? And then the leaves would be, say, the ones digit. They don't have to necessarily represent that, but again, it depends on what data that you're looking over. So, okay. So the way it works like this. So I'm going to have all my scores are between the 50s and 90s. So I'm going to start with the tens digit here. I'm going to have, say, I'm going to have 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So this will represent the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. So this basically, if I want to read this out here, I would say 50 something, 60 something, 70 something, 80 something, 90 something. Now the leaves here will be the ones digit that'll be associated with every single little thing, every single data item within the data set. So in this instance here, let's take a look at what we have here first. Here we have 85. So if we have 85, I'm just going to put 5 in for our leaf right here. This represents 85. I take a look at the next one, 93. So I'm going to put a 3 here next to the 9 as my leaf. 51, I'm going to put a 1 right here. 77, put a 7 right here. 79, so we're going to put a 9 next to the 7. Okay, so you take a look at what we did there. We just put a 9 next to the 7 because this is 77 for the first one, 79 for that next one there. 62, so put a 2 here. 91, okay. 99, put a 9 there. 80, so we're going to put a 0 here for 80. That's perfectly fine. 85, so 85 comes up again, but remember, we're now expressing each data item in the data set. So we're going to put another 5 right here. One of the things that we need to keep note of here specifically, note here. So note, okay, all data items must be represented. Okay. All data items must be represented. All right. Let's go back. We did 85, the second 85. Let's do 66, 57, 72, another 77, so put a 7 here, 61, and 83. All right, and there we have it. We have the stem and leaf plot here for our data set. All right, so we've organized our data set into many different ways. And as you can clearly see here, again, you can see how the distribution kind of works here if you kind of set it up in this manner compared to maybe the histogram or whatnot. But you see they both pretty much work out the same way. All right. Are there any questions about stem and leaf plots? Any questions overall, I should say? Hopefully that isn't too. No! No! No, you're so boring. All right. Yes, I can show you the notes again. There you are. Also, actually, let me get both sets of notes here. Just a second, sorry. Let me get you the this is the last couple pages here for that was asked, so for chapter 1. Here we go. 9. That's fair. That's fair, young one. That's fair. I don't disagree with you. That's very, very fair. I see. I hear you. I hear you, young one. I hear you. Oink! The factions, they come out. They come out. The Oink faction comes out. Oh my gosh. The Oink faction comes out. We got the Moo faction, the Oink faction, and the Nay faction. I respect all factions. Okay, this is important. All right, all factions must be accounted for. All right. This is the perfect day job for a D&D player. D&D still steady is true, right? Let me bring back my my face for a second. Woo! Face come back. Woohoo! Here we go. Let me tell you, this is just the perfect job period when you get to teach and you get to have a lot of fun like this. Super fun. I know. It's like I get to do nonsense all day, and I get paid to do nonsense all day. Only it has relevance. Like, how am I gonna argue with that? I ain't gonna argue with that. No, sir. No, sir, indeed. All right, can we still access the classes we have had so far, like a recording? Absolutely, Kristen. Twitch has saved videos. Yes, the replay is right here. If you go underneath the videos tab, you will see a replay of previous classes, and I archived them over to my YouTube channel. So if let me go ahead and put this in the chat here. This is my YouTube channel. Should you want to subscribe to that, I also upload that, but only 24 hours. Only 24 hours after the initial live stream is over. So that's the rules of Twitch, so that's what I'm going to follow. So is there certain homework to keep up with the notes? Yes. If you want to keep up with the notes, then I would suggest maybe up to section 2.2. So up to section 2.2, Toaster, you should be in wonderful shape. That's again if you want to go with the notes, but you go at your own pace, my dude. If anything's just perfectly fine. Though you may want to do it closer to the test time. Yeah, that's going to be kind of important. But still. Anybody else have any other questions? All right, let me not for a little bit, my friend. Not until we get through chapter 3. So once we get through chapter 3 BMZ, I'll be announcing a test, but I'll definitely let you know way in advance before that happens, and we'll discuss it in a lot of detail. So don't stress over when it is. I'll let you know, and we'll go over the details about how to take the test and all that jazz once we get around to do it. But let's focus on the material for right now. Yeah. It's all good, buddy. Is there a mathematic? Wade, there is never a mathematical. There is never a mathematical formula to calculate how amazingly badass Lelouch is. Lelouch is the best badass anime character of all time. I love intelligent characters like Lelouch. He is absolutely amazing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming out here to the stream once again. All right, thank you so very much, all of you. Love you guys. You guys are wonderful. All right, I'll be having another stream here in about 15 minutes, in about 10 minutes or so. But thank you again. All right. I will see you all on Monday. Have yourself a wonderful weekend. Enjoy yourself. Get some studying done if you want to. Otherwise, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. All right. Have yourself a great one. All right. Take care, everybody. And we'll see you in a few days. All right. If you have questions, you know exactly where to find me. All right. Take care, everybody. And we will see you then. All right. Take care, everybody. Take care, you guys. Bye. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everyone. Here for the 12:30 102 class. I hope you are having yourself a very wonderful day already. It's been absolutely bananas, and hopefully it gets to be even better. Good morning / afternoon, Naomi. Hello, planet. How are you doing? Air Brazier, good afternoon to you. I hope you're doing very, very well. Good afternoon to you. Hello, Professor says hello to you, Madison. I hope you're doing really well. I hope you're doing great. Alyssa, hello, 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 hello. Wonderful to hear from you. Hopefully that you had a good couple days. All right. Kylan, hello. How are you doing? 3W Frontos, I'm doing really good, my friend. I'm doing great. Planet, you got a reason why you're doing great. That's even better. I like that. If you just feel great, then I'm wonderful. But I wanna see if you have a reason. Hey, go ahead and state such. Bananarama. Hello, how you doing, my friend? Jose, hello to you. I hope you've had a great couple of days. Ashley, hello. I hope you have also had a great couple of days. I hope you have had some fun in along the way. I've had a lot of fun in along the way the past couple of days. Because you just had breakfast. Well, I can't really argue with breakfast at 12:30. Well, it's brunch. We'll go with that. But hey, wonderful, Kylan. Wonderful. I'm happy that you're doing good, my friend. As we're all doing good this wonderful, fine afternoon here on a Wednesday. Hazelnut, hello, hello, hello. I hope you're doing wonderful here today, Hazel. Hazelnut, we are doing great things here today. We're having a little bit of fun in along the way. You know, getting down to some serious business, getting that lecture, but still being chill, being relaxed, talking about stonks maybe somewhere along the way. Who knows? Just depends. The market's been absolutely crazy today, and I'm just kind of watching just a little stonks as a treat. Okay, that's fair. I will go with this. Okay, I'm willing to go with this. All right, I have notes already ready to go, but you know what? Let's start off with a little bit of stonks to start off with. Okay, stonks has been very crazy today. Absolutely bananas. All right, if we're gonna talk about stonks, I'm gonna show you the stonks in real time. So let's discuss the stonks here in real time. I'll show you my my account here. So let's go ahead and take a gander. I know. You're like, more stonks? Holy moly. Be like, seriously? I'm like, yeah, serious. Oh, I guess this one got. Alright, let me bring this up here. Just give me just a moment. Oh, bam. Alright. Alright, so my play, of course, is to play with Tesla because Tesla's easy. So I like Tesla because Tesla's fun. Tesla's has their earnings today. But let's switch up the main board here. Let's go up to my... Alright, so let's take a look at stonks here for today. I have Tesla. It did me good. It's made me monies. Alright, monies is good. Alright, I can't really argue. I'm a little down for the year, but you know what? It'll go back up eventually. But let's talk about the real meat and potatoes of today. About the two stocks that are making waves today. Today is AMC. Like AMC Theaters, they raised $900 million yesterday, and they're up over $10, near $11 here today. I bought like 9 shares of AMC. That's all I could really afford. I'm just gonna do it for YOLO's sake. I'm like, here you go, YOLO. All right, it's only 150 bucks, so I'm like, yee. All right, your boyfriend has AMC stocks. Respect. Did I try and do the GameStop thing yesterday? I tried. It was really hard. GameStop is a different story. So JD, hello. How are you doing, JD? Let's look at GameStop here. GameStop GME. That is right now at $310, but at one point it was at $380. It's been at lows $249. It's absolutely crazy for GameStop. Only $150 worth. So that was only 9 shares. Look, that's okay. But I'll put it this way here. I bought, GameStop is really basically kind of a war at right now. A war using money, but really a war over, I don't know how you put it, old money versus new money. Basically the younger generation versus older generations. about how market manipulation works. So a lot of people are very upset at how hedge funds basically screwed people over. It's what people in Wall Street Bets believe. So they're like, well, why don't we unionize together and force the people who short the stock in order to force them to buy it again so they don't lose as much money. And that's what you call a short squeeze. And so that's essentially what has happened here to GameStop in an immense amount. So GameStop was like 20, 30 bucks a few days ago, and now it's worth over $300. So it's pretty absolutely crazy, but it's really basically a war against hedge funds and I guess to Wall Street Bets and media and all the other kind of stuff here. So I guess that's they're throwing their money into this endeavor. So and they make you're talking oodles of money. Oodles of money I don't have obviously, but still, it's fascinating to watch nonetheless. So very very fascinating to watch nonetheless. I ain't gonna lie. And then let's see. I wonder if I have this here. Yeah. So and then we also have Nokia. Nokia is a stock that that's kind of bouncing up and down here today because Nokia announced a big merger. So stocks halted a couple times because of heavy trading. So yeah, stonks for the win. In the meantime, despite all of that, everybody else, pretty much most stocks are getting slammed. So everything else is pretty much down, with exception to a few things. But yeah, there you go. Nokia? Yeah, Nokia definitely still exists. Nokia owns a lot of patents, actually. So although the cell phones flopped, okay, they still own a lot of patents to cell phone technology since they were the first ones on the scene. So there you go. That's where you make a bulk of your money. Is basically you sell out the patent rights and then you just keep collecting checks on it. It's the same thing as if you're like a actor and you put your show in syndication. You make much more money off of having your show in syndication than you do actually working on the show. So same with music too. So you make much more money in the licensing than you do in the actual selling of that song. So how do you buy stonks? You sign up, you have some money, and you spend it on how much each share is worth. That's how you buy some stonks. This is not stonks. No, I bought 9 shares of AMC. That's fair. What I bought for Tesla though is not stonks. This is options trading, which is a little bit different than actually buying the stonk directly. Yeah, so since they lost out Planet on the cell phone market, Nokia, they switched gears into doing patent technology. So that's where they're making their bread and butter is patent technology for communications. So although you haven't heard from them in terms of a retail market, yeah, they're still working. There's still a company behind the scenes. Maybe not as valuable as they once were, but still make money and they still are viable. Hopefully, I'll be making a little bit more money today. Yeah. I got 1,500 banked in here. Hopefully, I can have more banked in here. Yeah. I'm hoping by the end of the week I'll have $2,400 banked on Tesla. Yes, I can't argue with this. Free money is free. All right. Now that I've shown you that, we can talk about options later, I'm sure. All right. But we gotta do work. All right. Let's do this intro and let's get started here. Okay, let's get started today. Welcome back to Wednesday, end of the week time today. So today we're gonna pick up where we left off last time, and last time we talked about types of sampling, and we ended off here on the end of Hump Day. Yes. So we ended off here On question number 4, and we're going to start here at question number 5 here when it comes to types of sampling here. We had one more type of sampling that we want to discuss here, and then what we're going to do here is we're going to easily finish up chapter 1 here today, and we're going to get right into chapter 2. All right. So let's go ahead and bring up here our good old friend. The maybe not this direction. Good. Yes, yes. Thank you. Yeah. Good stuff. All right. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to start here at question 5, and then we're just going to work our way up here. All right. And we'll talk about, again, everything here is pretty much definitions, so there's not much to go off of. But in chapter 2, we'll be making up our own example here and working through that together. In any case, let's talk about the last type of sampling that we didn't get around to doing. We talked about cluster sampling, systematic sampling, sample convenience, but number 5 says, what is voluntary response sampling? So the way you describe voluntary response sampling is a sample that you acquire by asking people to volunteer their responses. So basically, the way it works for a voluntary response sample, as I put here, is a talk show survey. What exactly does that mean? It's like, okay, let's say you're watching a talk show. Let's say you're watching Maury or Steve Wilkos. And sometimes, during the show, they may pop up on the screen. It's like, do you think that blah, blah, blah is cheating on blah, blah, blah? They ask you, why don't you email or text or call? And they ask you for your response. So you think, yeah, I think blah, blah, blah is cheating with blah, blah, blah. And then you give your opinion. And, that essentially is a voluntary response. They're asking you, you don't have to necessarily call in or email or text, but they're asking you to volunteer and see, hey, you should take my survey, please. So a talk show survey is pretty much how that's going to work out. All right. So your grandma wanted to call into one of those yesterday. That's cute. That's so cute. You want to know something though? They're very opinionated. Okay. Typically they're not the best sources of a sampling because of their inherent bias, because people have certain beliefs, of course. So of course like when you hear a story about infidelity or something like that, you're like, oh wow, you're kind of emotionally invested because everybody has a different feeling about the topic of infidelity, like when you watch it on a talk show. So um and then you of course hear the circumstances. So typically opinions are pretty much, kind of on one side or the other side, depending on how people will view that topic or view the story. So that's something that's fairly interesting about talk show surveys, especially. um okay, but speaking of bias, actually, let's talk about that here. What is biased and unbiased? What does bias and unbiased means? Well, bias means that the result of the sample is not representative of the population. Unbiased is just the opposite. The results do represent the population. So one of the things that we want to do in our studies here specifically is we want to be sure that our results here will be able to social people in quarantine be like. Fair. Um, so what we want to have is a good representation of the population, but we want to match those results to the population there. So it's like to say if I have a political poll and I happen to pick everybody who leans toward one party, well, then the problem is that they're all going to vote for the candidate that's part of their party. And so that's where a bias would come into play, because the results would be skewed in such a way where basically my results would not be credible whatsoever. Okay, so obviously I want to avoid bias at all costs. I want to see what the real population thinks. Obviously I can't get the entire population to tell me what the real results were until election day, but the thing is that maybe I can get a pretty good ballpark estimate about how many people support which candidate. All right, so maybe, X amount of percentage of people support this candidate, X amount of percentage of people support this candidate, with a little bit of room for margin of error. Something to that degree. All right. So having said that, there are types of sources of bias that we typically run into when it comes to studies like this. As I mentioned here, sampling bias is definitely one of them. As I mentioned here before, again, too many types of person in one category. Again, too many people in representing one party. in a political survey, as in the example that I just gave. All right, so we obviously want to avoid that as much as possible. That's perfectly fine. The next one here is non-response bias. Non-response bias is if you just don't have enough people who responded to your study. So again, if you're taking a survey for a grocery store, you're saying, "Well, how are we doing?" And you want to find out from your customers. You're like, "Oh, wow, you're doing great, or you should improve upon this." The problem is that you want to get a good, healthy amount of people who come through the store to take the survey. If you get 10 people to respond to your survey, the problem is that 10 people aren't enough to really tell you what the rest of the people who enter your grocery store think about your service or your customer service or your store in general. 10 people's opinions mean pretty much absolutely nothing. So, if you get it to be consistent, it's like if you get 100 people to answer it, and that happens to be consistently true, like there's some issues or there's some good things, there's some bad things, then yeah, you're going to take that with a lot more credence rather than just one person who's just maybe either paying a compliment or, basically making nasty gram comments because of service or whatever. So that's something that's important there, or non-response bias. Next is response bias. Now, one thing that you have to understand about response bias is that response bias is not the opposite of non-response bias. They actually have two very different definitions. Let's take a look at what this is. Response bias is responses made by the individual does not match their true feelings. So this is also known as social acceptability bias. So the example that I come up with is a pretty classic example here. That is, if I was a police officer surveying my town, right? And I wanted to find out what was going on in my community. And I come up to you and I say, "Excuse me, sir, madam, do you smoke weed? Do you smoke marijuana?" And that's what I ask you, you know? Yeah, yes. Now, if I'm a person of a position of authority, if I'm a police officer, JD, and I ask you that, do you smoke weed? And you tell me yes, well, yeah, there's going to be not so great consequences that go with that. Okay, you could be arrested. You could be yeah, moo. Yes, moo. And moo is correct. Uh, no, if you're a police officer, right? You're not going to tell me the truth. I'm going to have JD tell me moo. All right. I'll be a police officer, be like, "Hey, JD, you smoke, you smoke some weed," and I'd be like, moo. In the background, oink. On the other side of the aisle, nay. All right. Um, we have Team Cow, Team Horse, and Team Pig. Team- We're back at it again. Yes. Nope, I don't even know what weed is. Yeah, probably most times out of 10, you're gonna probably say no to that question if it's in front of a cop. All right. And that's because he's in a position of authority, and of course, you could deal with not so great consequences with that. So you're not going to be very honest with your answer there. And there you go. That's what you got, cow gang. There you go. We're not stars and stripes. We're spotted. That's how the cow gang runs. Uh, cow gang can self-sustain. All right. So, are there any questions about that, really quick, about sources of bias there? Obviously, you know, um, good, good, damn. Okay, okay, Jose. I don't know. I don't understand what, what, why. Um, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It's gonna be like that today. It's gonna be like that. I can already feel it. Jose back at it. I can respect the hustle. I respect it very much. All right. Good beans, good beans. Uh, all right. So that's what we have here for any questions about bias? Any questions? Again, if you have no questions, type no in the chat, or if you do have questions, go ahead and type your question out. All right. Okay. Great. Okay. So we now have a good understanding of bias here and unbiased and stuff like that. Thank you. All right. So we're going to move on here and get these other questions kind of knocked out of the way here. 3W says to hydrate here. So today for hydration day, I today have chosen the unsweetened bold green tea in a 2-liter canister. All right, so that's what I have here for today. Unsweetened bold green tea. So that's on the hydration menu here. Um, Now it is a tad bitter, but the one thing that oh, lychee's pretty good too. The one thing that I like about the unsweetened one is that it's good for your health and it detoxes you a bit. So gets all rid of that nasty stuff, that you get from Burger King. It cleans that all out of the system. It feels good at the end of the day. When you clean them kidneys up, you're like, yeah, feels really good. So absolutely outstanding, and a little bit of a caffeine rush, just a smidge, so not a ton. Um, all right, let's look at number 8. Hell yeah, indeed. Naomi's like, yeah. All right, yeah, all right. Green tea is life. There you go. There you go. I got some other drinks that I finished here. I finished this yesterday, so what is this here? Cafe LA. Cafe LA. I finished that. It's a coffee drink. It's got like a little bit of whipped cream put in there. So there you go. Yeah, yeah. Um, and of course, one of my favorites that I drink rather quickly, which is of course royal milk tea with 25% milk. So royal milk tea, black tea with 25% milk. I'm lactose intolerant to a degree. So I'm like, yeah, I don't care. It's still too good to pass up. All right. Yes. All right. So let's look at number 8 here. We talked about this last time here. What are types of experiments? We talked about single blind and double blind. Yes. Oh, you guys are lactose intolerant too. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I have dairy pills help. For me, I can't process it all. Like 99% of dairy just it doesn't go well because I'm Asian. So being Asian, you don't really have it, being Asian, you don't really have the enzyme to process milk properly all the way. So yeah, like 99% of Asians have that. So yeah, it's just that's just part of the deal. You can again, you won't feel like complete ill effects, but taking too much, you could really feel nasty about it. So if I drink like straight milk and I don't have it mixed with anything, then yeah, it's gonna wreck my system. But if I eat like cheese pizza because it's mixed with stuff, then it's cool. Or if I have this milk tea, then it's cool. Okay, it's not gonna feel as bad. So um, yeah, that's why I can like drink the milk teas and stuff. But yeah, straight milk, I'm gonna have rough times. I eat cheese but no milk. I love cheese. Yeah, cheese is so good. Give me some cheese. Give me some cheese and crackers. Shoot, so good. Almond milk's very good too. Almond milk is outstanding. Very, very delicious. You miss eating cheese? You can always eat cheese. Oh, they don't work for you. Oh no. I'm sad. Cheese is bomb, but if you can't eat cheese, then you can. There's other alternatives to eating cheese though. Made by non-milk, non-direct dairy milk. Blueberry oat milk. Oh, wow. Okay, that does sound good. Me love me my blueberries. All right. I love me my blueberries. All right. I can't I'm never going to argue against blueberries. So, if you're going to put me on notice about that, I'm going to be like, I'm on your side actually. Blueberry, there you go. I've had oat milk before. Oat milk is pretty good. Yeah, the only thing is, I will say this, the only thing is that you just have to be careful about the sugar intake. Maybe not so much in the oat milk there, but yeah, you have to be careful about the sugar there because we have a lot of sugary, like, oh, we kind of oversaturate ourselves with sugar, so just have to be careful about the sugar intake. So that's the only thing we have to be fairly careful about. It's like I have a Coke sitting in the fridge, but I barely drink Coke, because my friend had Coke, so he just gave it to me and I took it as a kind gesture. But I mean, the Coke is like 1/4 finished in my fridge. And because Coke has so much sugar in it, like it's just oversaturated with sugar. It's ridiculous. That's fair, Planet. All right, we got to move forward here. I promise you, we got to move forward. All right, guys, we got to do this. All right. So, what are some all of you? What are some types of experiments? We talked about single blind and double blind here. So, single blind basically is one side knows who got what. Double blind is neither side knows who got what. We did talk about that last time in terms of clinical trials. All right. Number 9 here. What is a completely randomized design? Okay, so a completely randomized design is where the experimental unit is randomly assigned to a treatment. So that's question 9 here. So basically, um, again, I'm just going to randomly assign one person to a control group or one person to actually get the drug. All right, so that's where I'm going to slot them into my study at the end of the day. And so that's the answer here, number 9. It's completely randomized about who I choose, and there you go. Then finally, let's talk about number 10 here. Number 10 is, what is a matched pairs design? A matched pairs design is where the experimental units are paired up. Okay, so if we talk about the experimental units and where they are paired up, all right, we want to do it, say, in a clinical trial. So if we talk about it in a clinical trial, then maybe one person here, one person would get the drug, one person does not, one person's in the control group. But as you see here, the reason why I may pair them up is because I have two similar patients. Let's say we're testing out a diabetes drug, and I want to compare and contrast one person who has the control and one person who actually has the medicine to hopefully alleviate or help stop diabetes. So, of course, um, you want to have, say, two people who are similar, who have similar health histories and whatnot, and you can go ahead and compare and contrast those two people together side by side and see what the effect of the drug would be, so that way you'll get conclusive results. So that's really super helpful in a lot of ways if you match people up together who are very, very similar. So sometimes they'll have strict standards about who they pair up with together, but you want to keep it about the same, so about the same body type, same type of medical histories, relatively close to the same type of maybe other things, other habits or whatnot that they may take into account. And then it's nice and simple to see what how effective their medicine is or whatever they want to do. All right, so that's question number 10 here. So in a sense, that's the end of chapter 1. So that's the end of chapter 1. Does anybody have any questions here so far about chapter 1? Move here to chapter 2 in just a second. Any questions about chapter 1? All right, the answer is no. All right. All right. Let's go ahead and take a good look here at chapter 2. So chapter 2 is where we're actually going to start to use numbers, okay? And so what we want to be looking at here in chapter 2 is we're going to be looking at data items and their data sets and how to organize them. All right, so let's take a good look here at chapter 2. It's not as bad as you think, Naomi. I promise you that. It's actually fairly doable. I know numbers kind of smell, but, let's understand one thing here. All right? So let's at least let's at least hey, look, Ashley, Naomi, let's look at it this way, okay? Money is represented by numbers that don't smell. Correct? If you're going to disagree with me, I don't know what to tell you. But money is numbers that don't smell when they're positive numbers in your bank account. Okay? Money that's minus in your bank account, that's you know, um the numbers that don't smell come from money. That don't smell come from yeah, the only numbers that don't smell come from money. That's right. Money is a very nice thing to have. Okay, but that's what we're here to do. Okay, we're here to get you more money. That's why you're doing this. That's why you're doing this class here, to be a stepping stone to doing what you actually want to do later on in life. Money's just built differently. That's true. Money is built differently. Money has, of course, a lot of different effects, and of course, numbers have a lot of different effects. I'll show you one thing here. Let's see. So here is something that I haven't shown anybody just yet, but I can show you guys since we're talking about it. So if we talk about, say, the current state of the economy in terms of money and numbers and whatnot, here's the U.S. debt clock here. So at usdebtclock.org, so that's where you can find this directly. Um, so money that's kind of ew would be like the national debt. That's $28 trillion and counting, sort of thing. You know, if we talk about monies that may not be totally ew, I don't know, the federal tax revenue is about $3.5 trillion. This is all updated in real time, by the way. So they just have like linear clocks put in there, so the money goes up at a constant rate based on how much money you spend, the government spends or makes. If you talk about like approximations of the population, would be 330. I'm sure this is going to update because we just took the census last year, so that'll update eventually. The U.S. workforce here is 149 million. How many people are officially unemployed is 10.6 million. How many actually people are unemployed? 18.6 million. I find that to be much higher than that, but that's just me. How many full-time workers, part-time workers? How many people not in the labor force? Um, Again, things like this: retirees, how much you owe in money supply, trade deficits, total assets, liabilities. This is the big one here. A lot of people look at this to be kind of a not so good place to be. So, for example, here, Social Security liability. This basically talks about how much the government will owe in Social Security to everybody who's qualified, to everybody who's owed that money, and that's $21 trillion. So you would have to pay, if in order to pay off everybody who's making Social Security on their jobs, you need to have $21 trillion to pay that off. So Medicare liability is again healthcare. That's $32 trillion. And other unfunded liabilities, that's $158 trillion. So, um, need my stimmy? Well, I have one problem with the stimulus checks. One big problem with the stimulus checks. The stimulus checks will come, and they'll give you $1,400, $2,000, whatever. The issue that I have with the stimulus checks is if you look at the number is how much that money can actually buy you. You know, if I got that if I was living in another state where the cost of living was lower, that stimulus check would mean a whole lot more than living in here in Illinois. That's my biggest problem. Is that there's not it's never equal. So, yeah. So it's not equal, and that's the problem is that you can try a one size fits all, but you know that the actual purchasing power of your money is significantly lower here than it is in say if we went over to Kansas or something to that effect. And yeah, you haven't made adjustments for that. So really in reality, it's nice to get free money, but in reality, it really doesn't mean a whole lot if you can't even stretch your dollar. So that's the biggest problem about Social Security too, is that you make money, but how far can you stretch that money? And the answer is eventually, um, inflation's going to probably to kind of take you out of the system. That amount of money you get every month when you retire is not going to be enough to pay off what you want. Dixie, thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate that. California is its own deal. I mean, California is its own deal. Dixie, what's wrong? Oh no. Sadness. I feel bad. I didn't mean to make you sad. I apologize. My apologies to you. All right. Dick, yes, I'm not going to say it. So, no, I'm not going to say it. No. Nope. I'll call you Dixie. I'll call you Dixie, but that's about it. You do you at the end of the day. I ain't gonna hate. Sorry, look, I go through a lot of the names, so as soon as it's like my apologies about that. I try and keep this as clean. I try to keep it clean, not like super clean, but clean enough. So keep things formal. It's all good. Kind of just reminds me of that episode, just those episodes of The Simpsons where Bart always prank calls Mo. It's just the same thing, just the 2021 edition. Um, where can you find all the homework? All the homework is on my math lab. Okay, all the homework is on my math lab. So once you register for my math lab, you can go ahead and get access directly to the homework. You just click on the assignments or homework tab on the left-hand side, and you'll have a list already ready and waiting for you there. All right. Okay. Now we do have to get going here. Let's go ahead. We be cultured. Yes, I hope so. All right. So all right. So let's take a good look here at sections 2.1 and 2.2 here. Okay. We're going to get through most of this here today. All right. We're going to do an example here, and we'll see exactly how this works out. Okay. First of all, let's look at question 1. Question 1 says, "What is frequency and frequency distribution?" All right. So first and foremost here, let's talk about frequency. Frequency basically says how many data items fall within a class. Now, I'm going to call this quite often here is what we call a class. A class is just another name for a category. But I'm going to be fairly specific about it here in this case because we'll be defining things within the concept of a class here later on in this handout. So we're going to see that in a little bit. Now, what do we want to do here? Again, how many data items fall within a class here, or again, any given category? Now, the thing is for a frequency distribution is that how many data items actually fall for the whole data set fall within each class. Okay, so what we're going to see here is we're going to take a look at one example here. Okay, so we're just going to do one example here, but this one example is going to cover pretty much every question that we're going to cover here for these two sections. Okay, so we're going to be talking about this example here and then breaking it down into organizing it into data that we can actually use and make conclusions off of. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here. This is going to be in relation to question one. So I'm going to make up a data set here. Now in this instance, let's make the assumption that the data set here is going to be, let's say, students who took a test, okay? So let's say we have students who took a test. And maybe with students who took a test, we just recorded their test scores, okay? So let's just make up some test scores. Let's see what we're working with. Let's say 73. Actually, what? Actually put that in blue. 73. This is all right, 73, 60, 85, 89, 90, 57, 84, 57, and let's just make up 7. All right, fine. Okay, so here's a data set in question here. Okay, so I made up some random test scores here. There we go. And then we're going to go ahead and arrange this data here using our categories or classes. And we're also going to find the frequency of each one of those classes. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this is going to work. All right, first and foremost here, let's talk about our classes here, which I'll just label in this particular case our sets of scores, since that's the context. Now, typically what we want to do here if we're going to set up our scores here is of course we usually go say for A B C D F. Okay, so like that, what scores got A's, what scores got B's, what scores got C's, what scores got D's, and what scores got F's. Now in this case here we're going to do this slightly a bit differently than A B C D F, and we'll do it for good reason. We do have a couple reasons that will be stated here later on. So I do want to state it as such for right now. But let's say we were wanted to make it a bit easier. Let's say we just talked about say just scores in the 50s, scores in the 60s, scores in the 70s, scores in the 80s, and scores in the 90s. Okay, let's just go with that. So um, let's say we have a range of scores here. So all the scores in the 50s. So let's say 50 to 59. All scores are here in the 60s. So 60 to 69. All scores in the 70s, 70 to 79. All scores in the 80s, 80 to 89. And all scores in the 90s, 90 to 99. Okay. Okay. Now, what we want to do here is talk about frequency. Now, the frequency here is going to talk about how many scores in our data set are within the class here, or within the category. So if we take a look here, we're taking a look at scores between 50 and 59. So how many scores how many scores in our data set are between 50 and 59? How many scores can we see here in the data set that are between 50 to 59? That are within fall within that category. How many scores in the data set are between 50 and 59? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 7? I don't know. You guys tell me. Okay, 2. All right, that's correct. So the frequency here for this category or this class is 2. Okay, that's how many scores are between 50 and 59. So we have 59 and 51, respectively. Perfect. Everybody got it right. Nice. Okay, let's take a good look here at the 60s. All right, how many scores in our data set are between 60 and 69? Okay, wonderful. That's correct. The answer is indeed 3. Okay, there are definitely 3 scores between 60 and 69. Great. All right, so we have the scores of, in this case here, 61, 62, and 67. Okay, fine. Let's look at the 70s. How many scores are within 70s here for this data set? Got 3 D plus 4. Okay, so change that to 4, all right? Yeah. So the answer is indeed 4. All right, so 4 is absolutely correct. All right, so we have 73, we have 71, 73, and 79. Okay, perfectly fine. How about the 80s? How many scores are in the 80s? We see here 4. Okay. Okay. I like where this is going. This is muy bueno. I agree 1000%. All right. And let's take a look here at the 90s. How many scores in the 90s? All right. So the answer is 3. All right. So that's correct. There are 3 scores within the 90s here for this particular data set. All right. So this is basically going to be our frequency distribution that we've correctly set up here in this particular instance for this example. Now, there's one thing that we have to be very careful about here. So I'm going to just kind of put this side by side here so it makes it a bit easier to follow. So I did put a little note here that is fairly helpful. Okay, and that is that the sum of the frequencies here must equal to the number of data items in the data set. So if we take a look off here to the left, as you can see here, there are 16 test scores that we actually set up here prior to actually putting it within a frequency distribution. So if let me go ahead and put the big picture here. So if we add up all these frequencies here together, then what you should get here is you should also get the same 16 that you need here at the end of the day. So I have 16 scores, so the sum of the frequencies should equal all the data items in the data set, again, at least in terms of the number of data items within the data set. Okay, so that has to be consistent in that regard. Okay, good stuff. Alrighty, now let's go ahead and do the next part here. So we're going to leave a little bit of space here next to the frequency here because we're going to want to answer the next question over. So let's talk about that right now. The next question here is, how do we calculate relative frequency? So how do we calculate relative frequency? So that note that I put down here, it says the sum of the frequencies must equal the number of data items in the data set. We need to have that here in this case in order to figure out what relative frequency is going to be. So what is relative frequency? As a formula, relative frequency is equal to the frequency of the class or category, whichever way you want to call it, divided by the sum of the frequencies. So the frequency of the category or class divided by the sum of the frequencies. We'll talk about this note here in just a moment. But let's go ahead and set this up here. Let's see how this exactly works. So I'm going to put here relative frequency. Okay. Now, if you see here, let's take a look at our first category. Our first category, or class, has the scores between 50 and 59. And we correctly declared that we had two scores, or two data items, that were between 50 and 59. So if we're doing relative frequency, then that means that 2 out of 16, or 2 divided by 16, are between 50 and 59. Now, what we want to have happen here is we're going to actually do this on the calculator here. And we want a decimal equivalent associated with this. So does anybody have a decimal equivalent here? 2 divided by 16. You guys help me out here. So 2 divided by 16 here. 0.125. Okay, good. So that's the decimal equivalent here, 0.125. Now remember, the decimal equivalent here can also be converted into a percentage in this case. So this could be labeled as 12.5%. The reason why I'm pointing this out here is because some homework problems want you to put in the decimal, some homework problems want you to put in the percentage. So I wanted to state both so that way you're not caught unawares when you try the homework out. Let's take a look here at 3 out of 16. What's that as a decimal? Three divided by 16. Okay, very good. 0.1875. All right. Don't forget that last number out there. If the decimal here is really complicated, then rounding is okay. But if it goes out 4, if it comes out in 1875, I think that's fine. All right, so this is again 18.75% per year. Now I'll go ahead and finish off the rest of this here. So we do 4 out of 16 here. That's going to be 0.25 or 25%. Same thing with the next one. Same number. All right, and 3 out of 16 we can get from the first one, the first 3 out of 16 here, of 0.1875. Okay. So one of the things that you can take to the bank here is that if you add up these decimals here together, okay, adding them up here should equal 1. All right, so that's what we should get there at the end of the day is we should end up with 1 or 100%. This can be approximate to 100%, okay? So meaning to say, if I look back at my notes here just for a really quick second here, let me go back to my notes. Actually, if I go back to the notes here really fast, again, that's why I put this note here. It says this may be approximately added up to 1 if you have to round the decimals. So if you have to round the decimals, then of course the percentages will get rounded. And so it'll approximately equal 1. It may be a little bit touch under 1, maybe a touch over 1. But again, that's because the decimals could be super ugly to work with. That can easily happen in any, at any point in time. So just want to point that out here for that particular part. If that happens, it happens. So it is what it is. But this is how we set up number 3 here, by the way. As number 3 in the handout says, how do we make a relative frequency distribution? Well, that's exactly how you do it, is you list it out this way. Once you make your frequency distribution, you can directly do your relative frequency distribution right after that. So it makes it significantly easier to do. Are there any questions about relative frequency distribution before we move forward? Any questions at all? Yeah. All right, good stuff. All right, so I will move on. All right. Okay. Everybody seems to be in a good space. Very happy to see that. All right. Let's move on here to the next part of the handout, which is going to be question number 4. We're going to take a look at some other parts here, but says no. Question 4 says, what type of graphs can we make using frequency and relative frequency? So common graphs that you can make here, as I've listed here, are, say, bar charts. So bar charts are fairly common to use. We'll actually look at one type of bar chart here momentarily. Line graphs, we'll also look at a line graph once we do the bar chart there. A Pareto chart, which is a fancy chart for being an ordered bar chart, just a fancy way of stating an ordered bar chart. And of course, pie charts. If you've probably seen pie charts at least once in your life. Okay, it's in the shape of a pie. You can put it relative frequency on there. You can put frequency on there, whatever you want at the end of the day. And it could be represented in terms of slices of a pie. Sure. All right, so everything there, pretty simple enough. No problem. Now, having said that here, though, what we need to talk about here specifically is how to now arrange your data here in a proper frequency distribution. Now, you're probably saying the categories that we chose here, and I'm going to make this half and half again. And I want to focus on one thing in particular. And the thing I want to focus on here are these categories, these classes that I have made here from before. Okay? Because if we're going to arrange our data here, we're trying to make this as easy as possible, but we do have some restrictions. But for us to understand exactly what those restrictions are, we need a little bit of we need a couple of definitions here. First of all, let's talk about class limits. All right. So what is lower class limit, upper class limit, and a class width? All right. So, first, what's a lower class limit? A lower class limit is the lowest value in that class. Okay? So, if we look at 50 to 59 here on the screen. Okay? Actually, let me swap here for just a second. Give me just a sec. Take my face off here. No more face. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. See, now the screen looks better because I'm not on it anymore. Okay? Just saying. No face. Oh my god. All I hear is a disembodied voice. Okay. Uh, moving on. Yes. 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 All right. So I wanted to take off my face here for just a second, so that way I want you to see these categories here a little bit more carefully. The lower class limit is the lowest value in that class. So if we look at 50 to 59 here on this page, again 50 is the lowest value in that first class. Okay, so that's again the lowest score that you can get. Upper class limit is the highest value in that class. So as you can see there, 50 59 is the highest one that you can see there in that particular class. Now, the thing that I want to focus on here is that last part here is class width. And the way you define class width is it is a small little formula. And this, let me go ahead and read this off, and then it'll make sense about how we actually compute this. Class width is the lower class limit of class number 2 minus the lower class limit of class number 1. Now you're probably saying, whoa, 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 time out. What is this class 2 and class 1 stuff? That doesn't seem to make any sense. Okay, so now let's bring back my face. Okay. All right, so what is class 2 and what is class 1? All right, so class number 2 here is going to be the class that we're going to, our second class here. So what we're going to want to have happen here is we want to take consecutive classes. So class 1 will be, say, the first class, and class number 2 will be the next class above that one. So in this case here, class number 2, which I'll label this as C2, I'm going to take the lower class limit of that, which is 60. Class number 1, which I'll label as C1, will be here, which is my lower class limit of this category or this class, which is 50. So in a sense, our class width is equal to 60 minus 50, which is equal to 10. So for every class that we have, for every category that we have, whichever way you want to call it, we have a class width of 10 scores. Okay, and this is true. So if we take a look at 50 to 59, for example, okay, 50 to 59 has 10 scores that represent that class. Not 9 scores, not 59 minus 50. It's 10. So if you count it out here, you have 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, and 59. So 50 is also included in there. That's why we have a class width of 10, all right, in that instance, all right? So pointing that out here about how class width works and why it works in that particular way as opposed to looking at the scores within the class itself. So, all right. So you got to be careful about that part. Now, of course, one of the things that's important as part of the class width is that why are we stressing on class width? Why is this so important in the first place? Okay, well, if we're going to go ahead and construct these frequency distributions, and we're trying to make up categories and we're trying to figure out frequencies here, one thing that you can't do, unfortunately, is you can't be super lazy about it. You try and be as efficient as possible, and sometimes when you're trying to be too super lazy, sometimes you actually end up making it harder than it needs to be. This is one of those case in points. Let's take a look. So number 6. Number 6 says, how do we construct a frequency distribution with the proper number of classes? So first of all, there's a max number of classes that you should generally take into account. The max number of classes here should be right around 15. Now, you may not have 15 classes. Like in our example, we only have 5 classes. But 15 classes is usually the max number because if you kind of go beyond that, then really you're having too many numbers being every category. So it tends to be a bit more difficult to kind of work with. Now, the next one here, the next two are probably the more important two parts, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about them. Next one here that I put here, do not make a class for every individual data item in the data set if it is too large. Even with 16 data items that we have here in our example, all right, those are too many data items to actually put as every single individual data item being its own individual category or class. This is not a good thing to do and makes much more work than what you need it to do. Again, you'll be way over 15 classes at the end of the day. Now you're probably saying, well, there's some repeats. How can you say that there's going to be more than 15 classes? Well, that's where the last part that I wrote down here is actually going to keep that in play. And that is, you must be consistent. Must be consistent with the class width for every single class. No skipping. Even if that has a 0 in it, no skipping. So basically, here's what it means. I can make up a class for, say, 50 to 59, but my next class after that cannot be, say, 60 to 64. Okay, I can't have that. I can't have a class width of 10 and then suddenly a class width of 5. All right, it can't be like that. It has to be the same class width for every single category. And this is and if you made every single data item its own category, that means even the ones like if you have say 50s, start at the 50s, you're like 51 has its own category, has its own class. 52, so even the numbers that are skipped, you have to represent them. It'd be 51, 52. So instead of having instead of trying to consolidate things down, trying to be smart, guess what you actually have to do? You'll actually have 50 classes instead. So instead of maybe the 13, 14 you were initially hoping for. So 50 classes, I don't think you want 50 different categories in order to maintain that consistency. That's why I put that last point there because that happens to be a big mistake a lot of people make. So be sure that your categories or classes are consistent in their width, so that way you can make the most accurate frequency distributions possible. All right. Before we move forward here, are there any questions? Any questions at all? Can a class width be negative? The answer is no. Excuse me. Okay, good stuff. All right, let's take a good look here at the next question. So the next couple of questions here, we're going to go ahead and answer this up pretty fast. So shouldn't take us too much time here. But again, just different pieces of information that we can get from the frequency distribution. So number 7, what is a histogram and some properties? Okay, so what's a histogram? A histogram is a connected bar chart that represents the frequency distribution. Note that I did underline connected. Connected is very important here in this case, okay? A complete connected bar chart. We're going to take a look at how we can put that together here, but it will be a connected bar chart. So they won't be separate bars necessarily, they'll be all connected together. This is, again, as I put here, shows the type of distribution for the data set from a macro perspective. So if we're looking at a big picture perspective about how the distribution is going to work out, we can actually look at it using this connected bar chart, this histogram. We'll talk about frequency polygon here in just a second. I'll come back to that. But first, let's go ahead and show you exactly how we can go ahead and construct a frequency polygon using our data that we have here. Okay, a bit more space. All right. Okay, so in this instance here, what we're going to have is we're going to have two axes, okay? So the way we're going to construct this, we're going to have two axes. We're going to have one here, actually, put it in black. I'll have one here, and I'll have one here. So on the bottom here, I'm going to put the scores. I'm going to put all the categories or classes down here. On the left-hand side, I'm going to have frequency, okay? All right. Let's go ahead and state every class here, first and foremost. So here we see 60 to 69. Here we see 70 to 79. Do 80 to 89. And we do 90 to 99. So there are all our categories here that we have for our data set. All right. And so we're going to go ahead and put our frequency as well. Sorry about that. Put 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so let's take a good look at our first category here. Our first category says from 50 to 59, we have a frequency of 2. Now, the way we're going to draw out this histogram here is if you take a look at the tick mark here I have for 50 to 59, we're going to go slightly to the left of that tick mark here for 50 to 59. So I'm not going to start all the way to the left. I'm just going to start a little bit to the left of the tick mark here I made for 50 to 59. I'm going to go up to 2. I'm going to go a little bit to the right of that 50 to 59 tick mark, and I'm going to bring that down. Well, right and halfway between the 50 to 59 and 60 to 69 classes is what I have right there. Okay. So that's our first bar here in our histogram. Now remember here, our histogram is a connected bar chart. So because this is a connected bar chart. So with our next category of 60 to 69, we're going to go ahead and take our guy here from the upper right hand corner, and we're going to bring that up to 3, and we're going to go slightly to the right of the tick mark for 60 to 69. Bring that down, just like so. So here is our next bar here, which is 3 for 60 to 69, just like so. Okay, next, we're going to go ahead and do the next category, 70 to 79. Start from this upper right-hand corner, go up to 4, because the 70 to 79 had a frequency of 4. Go slightly to the right of that, and bring that guy right back down. And bada bing, bada boom, we got it. Next is 4 for 80 to 89, so let's repeat. And just keep it 4 here. Bring that down. Go back to that tick mark there. Then finally, we have 3 here for 90 to 99. So we're going to start out here on the right-hand line. We're just going to approximate where 3 would be. Right here. Go a little bit to the right of that 90 to 99. There we go. Have it. So if we look at our histogram here. All right, here is our histogram for our frequency distribution. See, we have a connected bar chart there at the end of the day. Okay. Now, with that here, with this connected bar chart specifically, with this histogram, we are going to be able to find one more thing here. All right. So, thank you, Madison. Um, so, one thing that we have here, one thing we're going to find here as well, I have this in the notes, is that we're going to find a frequency polygon. Now, what is a frequency polygon here? We can acquire this directly from the actual histogram here. The frequency polygon is just basically a line graph of the frequency distribution. Now, you're probably saying, how can you easily find a line graph directly from this bar graph? Well, I want you to take a look on how I actually constructed this particular histogram. You notice these tick marks here in the middle. I put those tick marks there in the middle on purpose. The reason why is because we can construct our frequency polygon using that directly. I'll make little green marks here about where the center of those tick marks are. And all I'm going to play here is connect the dots. And when I say connect the dots, we don't have to be like making a curve here. We could just connect the dots with sharp lines. So from here to here, from here to here, here to here, and from here to here. So this green line that you see here is, in effect, your frequency polygon at the end of the day. There you go. Simple enough. All right. I do have one more thing I do need to go over here. It's very important here, so I'm going to quickly go over this and we'll talk about it, of course. So the last thing that we're going to talk about here is question 8. So I apologize for going over this a little bit fast. But the last thing that we can do is if we want to arrange and organize our data here, are stem and leaf plots. So what are stem and leaf plots and things to remember here? Stem and leaf plots basically represent every data item in the data set. Okay, so they represent every data item in the data set. So in this case here, we're now looking at every data item as opposed to looking at it from a big picture perspective. We're now looking at it from a micro perspective, looking at every single little data item here. So this particular case, I'm going to take a look here at the original data set that we saw here in our example. And I'm going to have two sides here. I'll have the stem, and then I'll have the leaves. So the way it works is fairly straightforward. The way it works is that the stem here stem here could be the tens digit, okay? Maybe not always applicable, but in this case it is. And the leaves here could be the ones digit, okay? One thing to note about the stem and leaf plot here is that, again, all categories must be represented, so all classes must be represented. So again, you can't skip. And then a second note here that I do want to put out here really quick, all right, is that repeats for leaves are allowed. Okay, so you can definitely have repeating leaves because each one here would represent, uh, um, that's okay, have to roll it. So each one here would have to represent, again, repeats for leaves are allowed. So essentially, that's what it boils down to. I need to, oh, I guess that didn't do what I wanted it to do. All right. All right. In any case, let's go ahead and take a look here at how we can put this data set together. So notice we have 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So we're going to go ahead and put here 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 to represent the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. So if you notice, our first data item in our data set is 73. So I'm going to put a 3 here in my leaf to represent 73. My next one is 61, so I'll put a 1 here in a leaf next to the 6. 85, so 5 here next to the 8. 59, so I'll put a 9 here next to the 5. 90, put a 0 there. 99, so I'm going to put a 9 here in our leaf here. Again, we have 90 and 99. So again, two different data items, but every single one has to be represented. 50, 87. Now 85 occurs again, but because we can have repeats here, I'm going to write down another 5. We want to represent every data item in the data set. So yeah, that 5 does appear again. 71, 73, another 73 appears again. 51, 62, 97, 84, 67, and 79. So there you are. There is a stem and leaf plot here for our data set. And again, you can now see the distribution, maybe in a little more visual, maybe just as equal as a visual representation as the histogram. But this is another way to kind of look at the distribution of the data items within the data set using a different technique. So there is that. All right. Are there any questions uh, about stem and leaf plots? Any questions about any questions in general, I guess I should say, because we're at the end of class. So my apologies for going a little extra time here. No? Okay. Not at all? Okay. Great. All right. So that will take care of it for today, everybody. Okay, we're going to end off here for today, obviously. We're going to pick up where we left off for next time on number 9. So we're going to finish up most of section 2.2. But if you want to keep up with the homework there, it's up to 2.2. All right, is going to be the homework if you're trying to keep up with the homework in the material. So you can go ahead and we're going to start off with number 9, talking about other types of shapes of distributions. The test here won't be until after we're finished with chapter 3, so that may not be for a while yet, Ashley. So don't worry yourself over it. I'll give you plenty of warning and plenty of time. Okay, and we'll talk about it in more detail, of course, about what what to do, what's expected, what the rules are, and all that stuff. So don't pressure yourself over about when the test is going to be and stuff like that. That shouldn't be too. It won't be as bad as you think. Will your test be on my math lab? Yes. Yes, Madison, that is correct. All tests will be on my math lab. That's correct. But like I said, we'll talk about. I haven't even made up the test yet, to be honest. So I will, of course. It's really not hard to make up a test. But um, once we're done with chapter 3, we'll definitely discuss that in a lot of detail. And you can ask me like every question under the sun about it. I try, like I said, I'm gonna keep things as transparent as possible. So in terms of time and stuff like that, questions or whatever, yeah, it just should be pretty straightforward. I'll give you a lot of time, and I'll give you, the questions you should be comfortable with, because I'll have a practice test to go along with it. So yeah. Any Yeah, take your time. Planet knows. Planet knows how much time I give on a test. Planet knows that I give a stupid amount of time on tests. I really do. No problem. No problem at all. I'm here to help. All right. I am here to help. All right, everybody. I want to thank everybody for coming on here for the stream here once again today. All right, thank you so very much. You guys, extra time never hurts any, but trust me, it won't. I want to thank you all so much for coming out here today. You guys are the greatest. All right, everyone, please enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the roller coaster ride that is AMC and GameStop. Enjoy some stonks. All right, enjoy your weekend. Have some good food, have some good laughs, and have some good fun. Stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay sane, everybody. Have yourself a good one. If you guys like to talk to me for office hours, we can. I have office hours right after this. Just email me or just let me know now. Whatever you want. All right. Take care, everybody. And have yourself a moo to you too, JD. Moo to you too. Moo to you too. The Oink faction will win one day. All right. Take care, everybody, and we will see you later. All right, everybody. Bye.